Here at Rock Island Auction Company, we get to see the rarest and most valuable antique and historic firearms, but we still rarely get to see iron frame Henry lever action rifles. The Henry 15-shot lever action rifle was one of the most iconic firearms of the American Civil War, but nearly all of them are brass frame. What I have before me today is two iron frame Henry lever action rifles. Well, what makes these two even more special is the fact that they are consecutively serial numbered. They're serial number 127 and 128. So these iron frame Henry lever action rifles built upon the volcanic and earlier Smith & Wesson lever action firearms, which used a rocket ball cartridge, which was basically a hollow base bullet with the actual propellant inside the bullet. Now the Henry used a more traditional, or what we now think of as more traditional, rimfire cartridge, but that was very innovative for the time period. And that allowed these guns to be a lot more functional and dependable than their earlier predecessors. So these iron frame Henrys were manufactured by the New Haven Arms Company, which was largely controlled by Oliver Winchester. So these are, the predecessors of the Winchester 1866, which became the first true Winchester lever action firearm. So they're historic in that nature, but you can see how they kind of bridge the gap. So if you look at some of our past Smith & Wesson lever action repeaters, for example, you'll see that those had iron frames. Then most of the volcanic repeating firearms are going to have brass gunmetal frames, like the majority of the Henry rifles and the Winchester 1866. So there's only around 90 of these iron frames still in existence. There was somewhere between 200 and 300 probably manufactured back in 1862 when these were being made alongside some of the brass frame ones. So while we get, we have Henry lever actions pretty regularly here at Rock Island, they're still rare firearms and a lot of people cannot get their hands on one to add to their collection. But these iron frame ones are very, very, very difficult to get. So we've got a consecutive pair. That in of itself is insane. They're going to be sold separately in the auction, so you have the opportunity to get both, or if you're really only going after one, you can do that as well. But I personally would love it to see somebody pick up both of these guns and keep them together as a set. And let's take a look at some of the details on them that kind of separates these from some of the other firearms of the era. So this one in front of me here at the back of the table, this is the second one. This is serial number 128. You can see the distinctive iron frame. Now on the Henry repeaters, underneath the barrel, there's an integral magazine. So unlike the later Winchesters, this is actually part of the barrel. And there's a sliding follower here that would come all the way up to the front. You load these from the front. There's no loading gate on the side of the frame. And then you, just like later lever actions, you actually run this lever to operate the action. You can see when I'm doing that, the elevator comes up, and that would bring a new case up and then load that into the chamber. So both of these Henrys have German silver blade front sights fitted into the front collar here at the front of the barrel. So the rear sight actually has two dovetails on these early Henrys. So you can see there's a dovetail cut here in the top of the barrel right ahead of the serial number. And there's another dovetail cut back here into the frame. So that allows you to move the sight to whichever location you prefer it. And you can see this has got a traditional notch sight here, and then you can flip it up, and you've got a adjustable ladder rear sight here, so you can adjust this all the way up, and there's even a top sight notch there. So that allows you to, potentially do some pretty long-range shooting, but the Henry is not really designed for long-range shooting. It's got a 1,000-yard top notch. The 44 Henry rimfire cartridge is not going to be carrying a lot of firepower at 1,000 yards. In theory, you could still do it, but this is much more of a close-in gun, and that's where they really excelled. If you think about during the Civil War, there was a lot of charges still, despite the fact that people were using rifles. There were still, mass infantry attacks. If you were behind, a fortification or in the trenches, and you've got a lever action, you can just go boom, 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 and fire off over a dozen shots at your adversaries, where they're used to facing people with single-shot, muzzle-loading rifles. This is a real advantage. Both of these incredibly rare iron frame Henry lever action rifles are going to be featured in our upcoming December premiere firearms auction, and you can be part of their history. You can own both of these guns. A pair of consecutively serial numbered Henrys is absolutely unknown, basically. This doesn't happen. You don't get two iron frame Henrys at the same time, let alone a consecutive pair. So to have these in your collection would definitely be a centerpiece and definitely, set your collection apart from everyone else's.